Welcome to JustWannaQuilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and, of course, a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. I'm Elizabeth Townsend-Gard, your host. I'm a law professor at Tulane University Law School and a LePage faculty fellow at the A.B. Friedman School of Business at Tulane, and I just want to quilt. So today we talk to Jake Kleiner of Paper Pieces. You know Paper Pieces if you do English paper piecing. They're like the company to get your stuff from, your paper pieces. We talked to him about the company and his family and all kinds of things.
Jake Kleiner, and I'm calling from Paper Pieces.
And what's your first memory? Okay, first of all, before I say my first question, I totally love Paper Pieces, and I've been doing tons of EPP, so I have 1,000 questions for you. But we always start with this first question, which is, tell me your first memory of someone sewing or quilting in your life.
First memory of someone sewing would have been my great-grandmother, because she did a lot of needlework and crochet, and she would make us scarves, mittens, hats, sweaters, I think, if I can recall correctly. And she was Polish. I remember she'd always call us, or she would say babushka, and then she'd rub our hands, and then she'd always give us her knitwears.
Oh, very sweet. Very sweet. And tell me a little bit about Paper Pieces. How did you get involved? And tell me a little bit of the story. I know the story, but why don't we start there about how this all happened, and what is Paper Pieces, if people don't know?
Of course. So I joined the business 4 to 5 years ago at this point, I think maybe 4 years, going on 5. It's a family business. So it's actually my in-laws who bought the business 15 or so years ago, probably even more now. I can't really keep track of the timeline. But they bought it from a Boeing executive or an engineer who had been laid off temporarily and actually came up with the concept of producing papers, different types of products for the English paper piecer or for the hand piecer.
And let me ask you a quick question. If so, was it a new concept to be producing when the first person before you guys bought it, was that when was that, and was it a new thing to think about getting paid, and explain just a little bit so people understand what it is, what the invention, what was special about this guy's thing that he did?
What was special was actually just that the papers were pre-cut, and in many cases it was laser cut. So it's incredibly precise. It makes pulling all of your quilt together, especially at the end, very predictable, and it means you're not going to have issues. What I would say was unique was probably the scale and the ability of different types of products that we're able to produce. So currently we've got over 13,000 SKUs, pretty much any conceivable shape, size.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
And we've got acrylic templates as well that match those papers. So I think in truthfulness, it's a several 100-year-old method. So to say that we invented it would not be accurate.
And so what made
it a business?
Yeah. So what made it an attractive business for your in-laws when they were buying the business?
It was in large part because of my mother-in-law. So she's a quilter just by trade anyway. She's done that her entire life. And prior to actually buying this business, when it was really in its infancy, she ran nursery, she did daycare, she did long-arm machine work for a lot of people. So I think especially many mothers who work at home are kind of juggling that as well as taking care of their own kids. It was just something that was really, I think, in her heart. And then seeing that it's actually kind of more of a physical business that could be supported and especially done from home originally was, I imagine, very appealing. So that kind of flexibility, seeing something that was really a method she used anyways, I think made a lot of sense to her. And God bless them, saving hard your whole life, they're able to kind of make a play at this business from this person who was actually getting returned back to Boeing back in their traditional education, back in kind of more of a traditional job. And she was able to kind of snap it up. And then from there was able to grow it over the last 15 or so years.
It's amazing. And it's, I really feel like you guys are the reason that EPP is such a popular thing right now, because it's so the packets that you get from you and sort of how you've marketed it and all the things you've done have made it so accessible. And as you said, you feel like you're successful when you get to the end of the project and it all fits together. So
absolutely,
it's really remarkable. So when they bought the company, was it what were they buying? Were they buying the machines and were there patents on the machines? Like what were you buying? What was your in-laws buying? What were they buying as a company from the original people?
So in large part, I mean, there are some lasers. I think the bulk of those were actually purchased after acquiring the business. Really what they were buying more than anything is the clients and the customer base.
Got it.
As well as the domain. I mean, really when they were buying this, it was early 2000s. I think for many people, it was probably an afterthought to even have a website, or it was just starting to kind of click like maybe this is another option.
Yeah.
So it actually originated as a mail order business, and we still have a lot of mail order catalog customers. But I think that's really where, when they bought it, it was an opportune time. The internet was really coming of age. There was a lot of other ways to reach people, especially with social media and at trade shows and things like that. But that's where I think it really expanded people's awareness of the method.
Yeah.
And then it's really just kind of seems like it's caught wildfire the last 5 or so years, especially just throughout the country and even internationally.
Got it. And so tell me what you did, because this is a big business now. I mean, we're starting with, okay, well, I'm going to buy it from this person. But over the last 15 years, it's grown into a huge thing. So tell me how that happened.
A lot of hard work.
Yeah.
More than anything, it's really always about treating customers right. It's about customer service. So for us, we are incessantly every day responding to customers' requests. Like I said, there's over 13,000 SKUs and counting. So in many cases, our business is actually responding to what any customer reaches out to us about. We may have had 10 different sizes of squares in the past. We might now maybe have over 100.
Amazing.
And in large part, that's because someone called us, emailed us, or sent us a note that they really wished we had a 7 3/16 inch square and the template that went with it. So really, It's just responding, in addition to working with now over 100 designers worldwide, supporting their design process as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the availability of the papers are amazing. That why would you do it any other way? Because they're, as you said, they're laser cut. And then I think it's really interesting that you have paired with designers, which is tell me about that side of it, of pairing with. I mean, I'm doing the Tulanova right now, which I bought, which is
wonderful,
right? I'm also doing the new Hexagon right now, which is who is that? Who does the new Hexagon?
Gotcha, Mary.
Yes, I'm doing both of those concurrently, and they're both so much fun. So tell me a little bit about attracting named people and sort of what role does that play in your business?
It's been a big part of the business, especially probably over the last 5 years or so, after it's picked up just in popularity throughout the world. I think in many cases, it was many designers who may have done handwork in the past, but may have focused on machine or foundation or other methods previously. And just kind of with the resurgence of this type of method, people saw really all the different types of things that they could create and ultimately the precision that they could produce. And in many cases, it was quite simply a designer reaching out to us who in a million years didn't even think we could support them or produce kind of whatever their dream or whatever their inspiration was at the time. And in almost every case, we respond with absolutely, no, you're incorrect. We can actually support this project and we'd love to take it to market and ultimately, produce these products throughout the world.
Right. And tell me a little bit about those, what you can about those relationships. Are they creating patterns? Like, how does that work? So I'm a designer. I think, I want to do something with you guys. How does that take me through the process of what happens?
Okay. Well, there's a lot of different forms and methods throughout our website where you can sign up essentially if you have an interesting idea, a product, or a pattern that you'd like us to support. I think really what distinguishes us, I mean, there's 1,000 different people in the world that you could work with. What distinguishes us is we always lead out with doing what we think is fair and what's right for the designer. So that's in the form of royalties, which we think are quite robust. And overall, when someone reaches out to us, whether or not we ever do business together, it's always treated as a confidential document. The patterns are proprietary, and further, it's something we'd never reproduce on our own. So even if it's a wonderful idea, the math doesn't make sense, or the designer isn't interested in working together, we leave it at that. And obviously vice versa, if someone's willing and working with us, it's something where we'll offer royalty on all products that are sold really for the life of the project. And we never pull items off our site. So for the rest of your life, we pay royalties really in perpetuity as long as something is sold. Really so it really opens it up for the designer to be creative.
Right.
From their process outside of time, there's no risk. They don't have any cost to produce these items.
Right.
And in many cases, it's actually a substantial form of income for many designers we work with.
I love it.
And then we support the entire manufacturing process, fulfillment, marketing, you name it.
And then are they transferring the copyright to you, or are they holding on to the copyright? Do you get a license for are you doing like a exclusive license for that pattern, or sort of how is that working?
That's another, I think, really appealing part of our business. So we do have all rights to use the names, use the pattern, use the files for marketing, for production purposes, for publishing purposes.
Yeah.
However, we do have non-exclusivity, which we actually insist on. So any designer we work with, we never require it's an exclusive arrangement. If they can drum up other business elsewhere in the universe, we don't ever want to make them feel like it's a restrictive relationship. And I think as open as it sounds, it actually incentivizes more people to work with us, and they actually do the opposite and work with us exclusively because of that.
Right.
I think in the environment that we're in now, there's so many people who are kind of scratching at the walls to try to control a process or a creative design. And at the end of the day, we really just want to facilitate the process. We don't want to be kind of dominating or anything like that. And I think that's why designers actually come back to us day by day by day, because they know who they're working with and they know we respect their designs. And ultimately, we just want to respect their wishes.
I love it. How long is the process from a designer? Like, how quickly what's your time frame for these things, for a new pattern?
It just depends on the size of the project and ultimately the complexity. Sometimes it's a conversation that's purely imagination. So it's an idea someone has, but there's no rendering, there's no graphics, there's no design or CAD work. And other cases, especially with generally more advanced or kind of more seasoned professionals, they actually have a lot of the pattern files, graphic files, things like that laid out. So for us, a big part of our business is re-engineering quilts. So someone might have an image of a quilt, but they have no actual specs. So we'll take that then asset, that image, that file, whatever it may be, and then actually do the math to figure out how many hexagons go in this quilt, what's the size of that hexagon, what are the corresponding shapes, how do they match, what's the total quantities, obviously what's the price and things along those lines, as well as the production requirements. So it's really, really variable. We pride ourselves on being absolutely lightning quick. So in many cases, we can turn a project around in 1 to 2 weeks from getting a file. We've got a handful of graphic designers as well as production, CAD, engineering kind of resources that we really turn it quickly, especially when we need to before market and other big shows. But in some cases, if it's a really intricate quilt, it could take us several weeks to a month.
Interesting. That's still really fast. That's very fast,
We try to be. We don't sleep a lot and we work a lot.
I understand that.
We're finally getting smart.
All right. So here's my question. This is totally Oh, sorry. Did I mess you up? Go ahead.
Oh, that's all right.
Oh, cool. Okay. So I look at all the pieces here, and I always am like, well, I would love, they have so many, as you said, you have so many pieces. How do you suggest, if you want to design your own thing, you go about doing it? Because I think it's so cool, and but I'm really intimidated by going off the rails and doing my own thing. So do you have a suggestion on how to do that if you were interested in that?
We are working on a couple of different things that'll probably be really interesting for that type of question, including applications as well as software and things. Actually just on our website where people will be able to kind of drag and drop shapes, different sizes, scale it, and then ultimately pull in different like fabric swatches and things.
Wow,
so
that'll be amazing.
There's going to be a lot more probably in the next year or so.
Oh my gosh!
When I'm not running the business, I do a lot of software development, so it's one of those things where I wish I could say it'd be 3 months, but realistically, it's probably more like 9 to 12 months.
Yeah, right. Oh, I think that'll be so
we're working
much
on a lot
fun.
more. Yeah, a lot more kind of assistive resources for people to do the design process. And then beyond that, I always say many people love hexagons.
Yeah.
It's kind of cliche, but it's a shape that works with nearly every other shape in geometry. So it's a really good base, especially if you're intimidated to get started with them and build from there with triangles, squares, diamonds, you name it.
Got it. And yeah, I just I look at all your shapes and I want to play with them, but I'm always afraid of I can't wait for the software. I think I'll be like one of your best customers. Once you make it, then would you be able to order the pieces you needed? Would that be part of the software?
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
Yep.
I love it.
Yes, that's the big thing we run into now. Not a huge issue, but we do sell kind of small, large, and bulk packs of different shapes.
Yeah.
But in some cases, maybe you only need 20 squares. You don't need 100, but our smallest option calls for 100. So we're working on technologies where after you've rendered your quilts, you'll actually render the shape or the design or the blocks. From there, we'll be able to do that kind of math and then get you precisely the amount with a little bit of an allotment.
Yeah.
Just for weight.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I totally love it.
More precise.
Yeah, it's great. It's so great. Okay, yeah. I'm I just want to give you 3 months. Just I'll come help you so you can finish the software. Okay, so tell me a little bit about being in Paducah. That you're all located in Paducah, right?
We are kind of in transition in that respect.
Where are you going?
Yep. So I've actually, the warehouse, we've still got a bunch of production staff. A lot of our marketing team is still in Paducah. I actually moved back to Wisconsin in the last several months. That's where I'm from originally. So I actually run the business remotely now via the cloud. And then a week out of the month, I go back to Paducah to check in with our staff.
Interesting. Now, do you have a shop in Paducah?
We do. It's actually just a storefront that's part of our warehouse.
Got it.
And we've relocated since we probably saw you guys last. We sold what was called the Hexie House right downtown by the convention center in Paducah. And we've since moved actually to Coleman Road. It's 3306 Coleman Road. And we're located right behind Hancock with Paducah, right off the interstate.
That's that's pretty awesome. So do you see a bump in people showing up? Because Hancock's is such a big destination.
Hancock is a huge destination. We work really closely with them as well. So we source a fair amount of their products. We stock a few of their shelves. And then again, with some of the designers we work with, we actually bring their products right to their storefront. Wow. And then in addition, we've got banners, some other advertisements and things like that. So we're actually finding an uptick in foot traffic, especially I think just coming off the interstate. It's literally right off when you pull off the ramp, less than a quarter mile. So I think it just catches a lot more people who are passing by.
Very cool.
Kind of an unintended consequence.
Yeah. You didn't. That's interesting. Well, it seems like perfect. I mean, that is such a huge, if people don't know, Hancock's is like this huge fabric place. It's like a big destination. It's a big destination point for people. It's gargantuan. So
every conceivable type of fabric you can think of.
Yeah, I haven't been, but it's on the list. I can't imagine. It's got to take. You just got to. You must have to bring lunch and take a break because it seems like it's got to.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's so funny. Okay, well, you also are really interesting because First of all, you've been super kind to us and so kind on so many levels, and I really appreciate it. You send out a lot. Do you send out packets to guilds and other things? So tell me a little bit about how you get the message of EPP out there in terms of your marketing.
So we're largely word of mouth. One big mechanism has been our sample packs. We call them EPP sample packs.
Yeah.
Which are completely free. You can request them by phone, by email, and or just directly through our website. And that's all of the papers as well as some pre-cut fabric and an instruction sheet to teach you how to make a hexagon flower. So that's really one way that we use that it gets a lot of people interested. It's not intimidating. It's something you can produce in probably 20 minutes or less.
Right.
So it gives them a really quick sample at no cost, and then ultimately has our information if they ever want to order items, if they have questions. And then beyond that, that's really where we permeate a lot of different guilds is they'll request those sample packs for education and other purposes. And we find that we get a lot of kind of referral that way.
Yeah.
We're starting to do some like pay-per-click, targeted search, other things on social media. So you'll probably see us becoming a little bit more splashy on main channels, but in general, it's all word of mouth.
So interesting. And it works. So that's what I kind of is amazing to me. I mean, it's such an interesting business model to send out those sample packs. Have you guys been doing that for a long time? And how did you think about that? Because I've been in a number of guilds where they spend the whole time teaching people how to do EPP because you've sent those packets, which I found really smart, you know?
Yeah, so we've done that since inception. I think that's really happened since the beginning with my in-laws. I can't tell you exactly what inspired the thought, but I will say we work with a lot of different fabric manufacturers throughout the country as well. And so a lot of it's a testament to them and their generosity as well. They're donating the fabric, we donate the papers. It's really a collaborative effort to get more people doing hand sewing. And at the end of the day, it's just a group of people trying to make it as acceptable as possible and ultimately have no cost associated with it.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. It's really, really quite amazing.
I think what's really appealing for guilds as well is, like I said, it's something you can do in less than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
In many cases, it's something they're handing off to someone, you know, at a guild, at a show. You can drop it in a purse, and then we hear many times that they're working on it on their bus ride home. So you don't need a machine. You don't need yards of fabric. It's literally in the palm of your hand. You can work on it.
Right. It's so funny because I really do believe that EPP is the way to go when you it improves marriages or relationships because I've been doing EPP while we were watching the Tour de France, the bike race thing in France, which is, 20, I mean, I don't know how many hours, it's 4 hours times 21, whatever. So a lot, 80 hours of biking. But it was perfect because it was you could do the sewing, you could hang out, you weren't, it wasn't stressful. It was kind of the same feeling as the biking. We spent all this time together. So I think that EPP is all about hanging out with your kids and your husband and your significant other because you can keep quilting, but you're more part of the family than when you're just off sewing by yourself. It's really important.
It crosses a lot of aisles.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm kind of amazed by that. And it's so unobtrusive, which is really interesting too, because you can do it in little bits, Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's my, I was interviewing somebody yesterday and they were like, I was EPPing during the Tour de France too. We're like paper pieces should be advertising during the Tour de France because there's all of us out here.
Yeah. Yeah, we hear that all the time about football, especially wives, and not to pick on wives, but a lot of times wives watching things they wish they weren't watching or didn't want to watch.
Right.
And it allows them to kind of be more engaged, be more social without having to be in their own studio.
Exactly.
But also still doing something that they're enjoying as well.
Exactly. And it's just enough, you're not so immersed in it with other crafts that you can still pay attention. It's kind of got this really nice rhythm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it actually becomes very, I think, almost meditative.
Yeah.
It's something that really takes your mind off of things. It feels like it'd be something where you're so ingrained in it, so intense, but it's actually the opposite. It becomes so repetitive and kind of straightforward after you do a few blocks that it's something you kind of just set it and forget it. And people oftentimes aren't even looking at their block as they're doing it.
It's true. It's really true. And the new hexagon is the perfect amount because it's about an hour, for me at least, a little under an hour to make a block. So you can kind of, gauge how long you've been sewing. So I don't know. It's really great. It's great. So,
awesome.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your quilt-alongs and how much of the business are the quilt-alongs? Or are they, tell me, I mean, Dear Jane, lots of people do Dear Jane. It's crazy. But tell me a little bit more about the quilt-alongs you have.
So currently we've got, I want to say 5 or 6 different quilt-alongs. We've got more in our war chest. We just haven't really listed them all currently, but we do really all of those in conjunction with different designers worldwide. By and large, they're crowd pleasers. They're projects people have wanted to do their entire lives.
Mm-hmm.
And as with all designers we work with, it's something where in some cases it might have taken us years to get permissions and ultimately having a royalty arrangement so these designers feel like they're being supported and we respect their design process while also making the quilt more accessible and more precise. So we've got, like I said, I think 5 or 6 currently.
Right.
It's a significant part of the business, but we are pretty well diversified at this point in time, and we're in a lot of different things.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
I think what people find really appealing about the subscriptions, and really with any of our products, we have really competitive free shipping policies. So for anybody who wants to do a larger quilt that might take 6 months to a year and a half or beyond, it's a way to break up the cost of doing that quilt, and it makes it more manageable on a monthly basis, both just as far as cost as well as time. So people tend to feel less overwhelmed, and then once a month it arrives, they can quilt along, they can do their row, their block, whatever it may be, and it kind of keeps them on pace without feeling overwhelming.
Yeah, it's they look they're very tempting. I haven't quite. I'm gonna keep working on what I have, but I look at them quite a bit and think, am I ready for this? But they are nice, and they're very reasonably priced for what you're getting, and it seems really interesting. Tell me a little bit about the Quilt Exchange. That's another thing that you guys do, right?
Yep. So Quilt Exchange was our sister site as of the last 2 years or so. It's really been a big effort to collaborate with a lot of different designers, largely designers that aren't involved in the English paper piecing method. So it's a way that our manufacturing arm of our business can support those designers, be it machine quilting, foundation, applique. And it's really a place where we tried to create support for designers that wouldn't muddle or confuse our core EPP constituents. It's since actually been merged, so all of our sites are under one roof right now. If you go to paperpieces.com, we've got buttons to go directly to Quilt Exchange, which is really more of a category at this point, as well as mini bolts, which is one of our patented products.
Right.
So it's really just a way to kind of have clearer lines between our methods, but also when we're working with these designers throughout the world, it's also a way that we don't have to say no because it's a machine template and it's not something we'd otherwise support on paper pieces.
Got it. And mini bolts, we talked about that before. That is a system for organizing fabric. And tell me a little bit about that and how's that going, and what are your thoughts about that product?
It's going really well. We actually acquired that business, I want to say 6 to 7 years ago at this point in time. We bought it from the original inventor who was looking to retire. So we bought that product. It's 2 different patented products that allow you, and we've got YouTube videos and other things on our site that you can take a look at, or go to Mini Bolts, www.minibolts.com. And it's 2 different size boards. It allows you to store either a fat quarter or up to a bolt of fabric on effectively a plastic board with patented teeth that really grab it and keep it tight. And it's a way that you can store on a standard bookshelf and different types of cabinets. And it prevents any type of rotting. It'll deter insects, things along those lines. And we've got a bolt buddy clip as well. So it keeps everything looking really neat and tidy, and it makes it a lot more organized.
And how important is intellectual property? I mean, for that, you bought the patent, but how important is intellectual property in terms of your business? And I think I know the answer to that, but I'm curious what your answer is. What role does it play in your business model?
The answer is that it depends. So with any design process, especially patterns and things like that, it's incredibly important. And in many cases, it's the type of thing where when we run into issues, when we run into a roadblock, we'll just pass on a project because we're not interested in getting near anything that is contentious, that feels like we don't have the creative license to produce it, and or if we don't have the written or expressed consent from the designer, we won't touch those types of things.
Yeah.
Whereas on the shape side, so like I said, we've got over 13,000 SKUs. A large proportion of those are a hexagon, a triangle, a diamond. It's items that really don't have any intellectual value. It's just a generic shape, but we're able to offer every conceivable shape and size.
Right, because it isn't that you're not protecting the shape. It's It's out of
It's
convenience.
really the design.
Right. The shapes themselves, it's really that, if I just order them, it's going to be better. And that's in some way, the trademark that's protecting your stuff, because you go, I have to get them for paper pieces because I trust them. And that's where we just go to get them. So it's the strength of your...
That's our attitude.
Right? Yeah. That's right.
Absolutely. And I think part of it too is people see how we work with designers.
Mm-hmm.
And so even when they're not dealing with a designer project, they recognize that level of respect, integrity, quality, service carries through in the same way with our shapes.
Yeah.
With our acrylic templates, and now we're expanding and doing Mylar templates as well. So really we're trying to offer any item for the modern day quilter, and we're trying to say no less frequently and make sure that we can support them regardless of the method.
I love it. And what about shows? How important are being at shows, and who goes and what does it look like and all that?
Shows are hugely important. We do 2 to 3 shows a year now. We've kind of scaled back, not by choice, but really just because of necessity to keep the fire going back at home in the warehouse. We do the spring show, which travels around with Quilt Inc., as well as the fall market, as well as festival, and that's in Houston. We've started doing the QuiltCon show as well regularly, which is at the Modern Quilt Guild, which we love. They are fantastically organized. They're incredibly precise. They run a really good show as a kind of a newer offering. And then in addition to that, we really love Quilt Inc. We think they do a fantastic job with spring and fall market.
Yeah. It's fun. Those
really,
are both great shows.
In our business, we're finding more and more the necessity is because of the designers we're working with, many of which are international. So it's really, especially in fall, a wonderful place to collaborate with different manufacturers, different designers, and it's all under one roof for 7 to 10 days out of the year. So it's a really nice place to collaborate, kind of bring designs together and then put it to fruition.
Right. Well, I've seen you at both shows, and it's great. And it's so interesting because are you surprised that the Modern Quilters and the Modern Quilt Guild, and that's what QuiltCon is, that they've taken to paper piecing? That seems interesting to me.
Surprised, not at all, because it really crosses all different avenues. Personally, I think many people associate our method with traditional quilting. But actually some of our most popular designs are modern designs and or modern fabrics. So for me, it doesn't surprise me, but I think a lot of our traditional quilters, especially people who have been ordering from us for 15 or 20 years, they're probably a little bit more taken back. But at the end of the day, we're still offering those products that they know and love and really just expanding to kind of meet other demands of largely younger customers as well.
I love it. It's really cool. Well, so how has it been being away from the business? How have you adjusted to that?
I love it. I actually find I can focus a lot better. I used to find that my office felt a lot more like a merry-go-round where there's people kind of coming in all day and night, which is great, but it's harder to concentrate on bigger picture kind of ideas and executing different initiatives. So I find I'm actually thinking a lot more clearly, and I can focus on some of our bigger initiatives more. And then that week out of the month when I'm checking back with our staff is really a lot more productive then for collaboration, dealing with more personnel, staffing, things like that issues.
Right. Very cool. Well,
I think it's a better balance. My wife, we found out, is pregnant like 2 months ago, 3 months ago.
Very cool.
So it was a big push to get back and be by my family before that.
Got it. Interesting. Well, that's all very cool. Well, I am just so psyched that we were able to re-record this. I really do. Your business is amazing. In terms of a family business, I guess my question is, because we're starting to do a new series on friends and family businesses, how has being in a family business, how is that different than other spaces that you worked in? And do you have any advice for families who are in business together or thinking about doing business? What are your thoughts about that side of it?
Well, I used to work in corporate finance, so I came from the completely opposite side of the universe. And I will say it is 100% different. It's a 180. Yeah. I think there's good and bad to anything. I think really the advantages that we had was overall being a family. It was a type of environment where everyone would dig in to get you name it, done on any given day of the week. And I think that's something that's a lot harder to accomplish at time with hourly or salaried staff.
Yeah.
So that was really, I think, one of our saving graces. Like I said, we were working 6-7 days a week and really responding to a lot more demand. There was an opportunity where we could all kind of pitch in and we knew we could rely on one another. In addition, I think without any planning, we wound up actually getting a broad assortment of different skills with marketing, with people who are already quilters, with engineers, finance, software. We really kind of crossed a lot of different areas without trying.
Yeah.
So I think that was really just probably more luck than anything. And then ultimately people just learning what they didn't know.
Yeah.
I will say the trade-off is working with family is you're working with family.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be more interpersonal things to kind of sort out. I think it's different when you're growing up and then coming back to a more of a formal business. So I think really one of the biggest things I would advocate for is always having kind of ground rules, having a mission, having an idea of what people's strengths and weaknesses are.
Yeah.
And really identifying those early so people have clear goals, clear expectations, clear understanding of kind of where we're trying to go over a longer horizon, and then really empowering people to use those skills and push them in those directions.
Yeah.
I think if you start from a smaller business and you grow, you find as you're expanding, it's kind of like a ship, and it's wonderful to be growing, but there's a ship with a bunch of holes and you're trying to patch holes as you're having issues or problems.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you can only do so many things at once, and especially only so many things well. So it's really valuable to kind of know your limits and then bring on other really wonderful people.
How were you at not like, is it always business all the time with your in-laws, or can you like separate like family time from business time? Like, I always find that my husband and I have a small business together, and I always find it really challenging to not always want to talk about stuff.
We got way better at that over the last year to 2 years.
Yeah.
I think we got more one big thing, like I said, we don't work weekends anymore.
Uh-huh.
That's a testament to our amazing staff. So they're doing a ton of the heavy lifting now. That isn't all entirely family. So I think one part is definitely lean into help, lean into other resources, trust other people to take on some of that process. That definitely helped us just to get out of the weekend kind of brain drain, to have a couple of these days to get away, to go to the lake, have dinner together, and not feel like, every day was a work day, kind of merging into the next task at hand.
Right.
I think having just that boundary was very important. And I think I'm finding now, especially as some of us have moved away, others are moving out of state or working remotely, it gives better balance as well, where you can work, but then when we come together, we've got kind of more time, specifically for family time. You've
got more, right. It's a more, everything's more deliberate, I would imagine, because you're not there all the time. It's interesting.
And I think that's actually a testament to working remotely too, is we've moved and invested in a very big way in the different cloud infrastructure. Uh-huh. So we're all working just as we've always worked. And instead of being in different offices, we're just, in some cases, different houses, different apartments, different buildings on those lines.
That's interesting, isn't it? I think that sort of business has gotten changed so much. I mean, I think about like when we did a ton of entrepreneurial work, and how much I'm teaching an IP and entrepreneurship class. So I've been thinking about this and how much it's changed by the communication ability, and everything's so much on the cloud, as you said, that it really did change the whole nature of all of it.
Everything. And rapidly.
Yeah. It's pretty remarkable. Amazing.
And they were getting the balances, like how and when to turn it off.
Yeah.
But in general, it's amazing. I can be in Australia at a show, or be in Europe or in Florida, and literally in real time be responding or putting out fires or, launching new projects. It's just really incredible what technology can do.
Yeah. Now tell me and we're almost done, but how big, I can't get a sense of how big your company is. How many employees do you have? How big is this operation, and has it expanded a lot over the years, or sort of how hard is this to run, I guess?
It is incredibly complex, but we've done a ton of work with engineering, with software development, with standardization and organization, that it's becoming more and more orderly. So for us, it's kind of second nature, but to step into it, especially with new staff, it feels kind of overwhelming because there's just so many different projects, so many different SKUs, so many different variations of everything going every kind of direction. So we lean more and more on software, on scripts, on different types of dashboards to kind of serve up that information so everybody knows what they're supposed to do next.
Yeah.
But by and large, I think we've tried to simplify the process as much as we can. We're right at around 20 staff members, so we're definitely growing.
That's a lot.
I would say overall, we lean on technology first just to leverage and get more efficiency first. And then ultimately, when we're finding we've got a limitation, be it fulfillment or design or other elements, that's when we then start to look for other staff.
Yeah, very cool.
And we'll probably hire in the next couple of weeks. So it's definitely growing.
Yeah, that's very cool. Well, as I said, you've been on my mind. I use your product every night. It makes my family a better family.
Awesome.
And
we appreciate it.
I think every quilter should EPP because it's good for your family. that would be my my tagline for you. EPP because it's good for your family. So they are happier with you.
We appreciate your business.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful day.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So you've been listening to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School. And I'm Elizabeth Townsend Gard. If you like this podcast, keep listening. Also, we have a Facebook group. Come join us. We talk about a lot of things. We also have an Instagram account. And of course, most importantly, I really hope you get a chance to quilt today.